Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is DreamFiction and today we will be reading the story Issei, the True Dragon of the Apocalypse, translated into English by Jyanzein. Well, what was that important thing you were talking about, old man? A man with black hair and blonde bangs would ask with a somewhat bored tone, as if he had no time to be there. The older man rubbed his huge beard as he gave a small smile and looked at his three guests. You'll see right now, Azazel. I don't understand why I was called. If it's a meeting of three faction leaders, could you explain it to me, Auden? A young white-haired, light blue-eyed young man would declare as he stood with his arms folded. I consider this to be something that concerns you as well, brat. Would say the old man, already identified as Auden. The man who appeared to be about 21 years old appeared behind Auden as he gave a small bow. They're coming, sir. Good work, Roswell. Nodded Auden towards the now identified Roswell, directing a satisfied smile at him. Just then, a magic circle would appear between the guests and the locals, two men emerging from it. The guests were surprised to see the first man. What is the meaning of this, Auden? Would state the blond man who appeared to be about 28 years old. Take it easy, Michael. I don't come with the same intentions as I did a few months ago. Would state a gravity-defying white-haired man with a smirk. I wasn't referring to my son, but Auden would not finish speaking as everyone watched the young white-haired man with wide eyes, something that made them quite strange, except for Auden who gave a small smile. Is something wrong, Volley? Azazel would ask, opting for a rather serious look. That energy, I know it very well. Volley would say as he pointed to the man standing behind Loki, wearing a hood that didn't let his face show. At Volley's response, the guests looked at the hooded man strangely. The brown-robed man's eyes glowed a violet color and then proceeded to slowly remove his hood. At this, Azazel, Volley and Michael would change their expression to one of complete shock at seeing who it was. Looks like you saw a ghost, folks. Issei would say, finishing removing his hood completely. Prologue. False awakening, the emergence of a demon without demonic corruption. 9 months before. Waff. Issei would cough up a large amount of blood as he looked at the huge bleeding hole in his stomach. If you want to blame someone, blame God for creating the sacred gear that resides within you. A woman who would have black-colored wings and a masochistic outfit would declare, then disappear with a purple magic circlet. Wonderful memories, thank you. Sacred what? Issei would wonder as he fell to the ground and continued to expel a large amount of blood from the hole in his stomach. Issei clutched his lacking stomach tightly with one hand as his eyes began to turn opaque as a pool of blood expanded beneath him. Is it really, in this little park? In some inexplicable way I'll die. Issei would think, regret in his words. At least, if you were going to kill me, you would have let me touch one of your breasts, Issei would say, then raise her hand and bloodied and put it in front of her face, only to squeeze it tightly as a few drops of blood fell on her face. No. I wouldn't be seeing my blood right now if I hadn't been such an idiot and let myself be cajoled by just a pair of boobs. Issei would think with great anger as his consciousness slowly faded from his body, leaving him with one last thought. If I had a second chance, I would do my best to change that part of me. Finally, Issei's consciousness disappeared completely, dying in an absurd and inexplicable way. Today's your lucky day, brat. What? Issei would shout with a clear frightened tone in his voice. Quickly, the chestnut would look around to see that everything was on fire. He couldn't exactly process what was going on as a huge red-scaled dragon appeared in front of him, giving a great roar that deafened him for a few seconds. I can finally talk to you, mate. The dragon would say, with a more relaxed tone in his voice. Talk to me? Issei would ask with confusion. Partner? He would ask with even more confusion. I know, this will all be new to you. But I will help you as much as I can. The dragon would state with a serious tone, then spread his wings. Nevertheless, I must admit that I am genuinely surprised. It's barely been 6 hours since your resurrection, and you were already able to strike up a conversation with me. The dragon would state, with a somewhat intrigued tone in his voice. Issei would widen his eyes in shock. Resurrection? What the hell? The huge crimson dragon turned its head back as it began to glow brightly. Looks like your dream is already ending. We'll talk in a second, partner. Issei would shout loudly, sitting up with a jump on his bed and breathing very shakily as he felt sweat running down his entire body. Stop screaming, oh you sleep outside today. A woman would be heard yelling from outside the room. Issei would rub his hair somewhat embarrassed. I'm sorry, Mom. This last he would say quietly. Issei would settle into his bed and close his eyes tightly for a few seconds, then open them with a confused expression. What a weird dream I had today, Issei would think, then downplay it. Issei would get up from his bed to start putting on his pants, only to stop in the middle of the process. A dream? That means Yuma. It's all real, brat. Issei would give a small cry of surprise and fall to the floor with half of his pants on, only to quickly get up and look in all directions frantically. On your left arm, brat. The thick voice would again resound. Issei lowered his gaze and widened his eyes in shock at the sight of a green oval-shaped light emanating from his right hand. First of all, you need to calm down. Shit, I'm going crazy. Issei would exclaim quietly, widening his eyes. Your electronic device is proof that your sanity is stable. Star, the thick voice would exclaim, with a very calm tone. At the mention of the voice coming from his hand, Issei would look towards the nearest piece of furniture, more precisely, his cell phone. Issei left his somewhat frightened expression to one of surprise, giving the benefit of the doubt to everything that was happening right now. The brown-haired man put away his alarm clock and grabbed his cell phone, then turned it on. April 2nd, Issei would say aloud, eyes wide open, then plop down on his bed, an indescribable expression on his face. The day is supposed to be the first day of school, and that's April 1st. Now, will you listen to me without saying stupid things in between? Issei would raise his right hand with a look that gave off some seriousness, as if he was thinking carefully about the proposal. That moment was spoiled when the alarm clock alarm went off around the room. Issei quickly turned it off, not allowing her to utter a word. A few hours later. The red-haired man found himself going to Kuo Academy in the student outfit as he carried his small suitcase over his shoulders and had his cell phone in the other. You're right, there's not a single picture of everything that happened yesterday. Issei would think, only to have a voice echo inside her head. Since they are paranormal situations, that fallen angel took it upon herself to transform all memories around your circle, including the photos taken together. Issei frowned slightly. That means Mitsuda and Motohama won't remember Yuma. Issei would think. The chatter in the brown subconscious was abruptly interrupted when he bumped into a small white-haired girl. Issei rubbed his hair in pain, then quickly stood up and gently extended his hand to the girl. Sorry, I was too immersed in my thoughts. Issei would mention, a nervous smile on her face. The petite Alvina girl would accept the protagonist's gesture, then wipe her skirt. No problem, but next time be more careful. The girl would say with a somewhat cold tone and with an expression that was indecipherable to Issei. The brown widened his eyes and gave her a big smile as he recognized the little albino. You're Kaneko Toho, our academy's mascot. The albino girl would nod with her cool expression. You're Issei Haidu. The boy who entered the academy yesterday, 2nd grade. Issei would pick up his bag while giving her a somewhat intrigued look. That's right. Why does he know so much? Issei would wonder internally, with genuine confusion. I have to go. Next time, I hope you'll be more attentive to where you're walking. Kaneko would say, then turn around and walk away towards the academy. Okay. Issei would state as she raised her hand slightly in a gesture of greeting. To then continue walking behind her and dive back into her thoughts. By the way, back home you said that the person who revived me is in this academy, could you tell me who it is? Issei would think. She will show herself in time. For the time being, I plan to talk to you about other things that I consider much more important. I'm all ears. Issei would think with a serious expression on his face. I'll start with the 3 factions. Later that day. Issei would be inside his classroom, fiddling with his eraser while holding the biology book on the first page with a very concentrated expression, as if he was paying full attention to the class. That means that besides the Fallen Angels faction, there are also 2 more factions which are, the Angels faction and the Demons faction, Issei would think carefully. In reality, there are more factions. But those 3 are the most abundant in this region. Young Issei, could you please continue reading? The teacher would ask, while adjusting his glasses with a smile. Issei would look up in confusion. Yes. In this first unit, we will focus on molecular biology. Young Issei, we're going to the top of page number 4. Pay more attention, please. The professor would declare, with a frown. At this, all the women in the room would look at Issei and laugh quietly. While his 2 friends half turned around on their benches to watch him with a raised eyebrow. Sorry. Issei would say with a blush of embarrassment on his face. The professor would just shake his head. It's okay, just don't let it happen again. Mitsuda, can you continue? Mitsuda would simply nod with a smile and start reading. Issei flipped his pages of the book to dissemble while still listening to his inner dragon. Now, I'll tell you something. But first you must prepare yourself mentally. I don't think you want to make another fool of yourself like you did a second ago. The thick voice would say, with a slight grace in his words. At this, Issei would frown slightly and nod, giving the dragon the signal to drop the bomb. I'll get straight to the point. To be more precise, you were not revived by that person, but reincarnated as a demon. Therefore, you now belong to the demon faction thanks to that person who reincarnated you with the chess pieces. The dragon was silent for a few seconds to let its bearer process all the information. Everything around Issei became inaudible, he couldn't even hear his own breathing. On the outside, Issei seemed to be very calm. But if you looked at him more closely, his eyes were slightly widened and a cold sweat was slowly running down his face. After a minute, the brown looked a little calmer, so the dragon decided to speak again. Do you have something to say? What exactly would the chess pieces come to be? Issei would ask, as cold sweat still ran down his face. A few moments later. So, I'm a servant of a demon, huh? That sounds creepy. Issei would think as he began to turn pale, just thinking about what they might do to him. The thick voice would chuckle a bit at Issei's thought but would quickly decide to act to calm him down a bit. Take it easy, partner. Even though you're a servant of a high-class demon, you're still a demon, so the members of your new family won't harm you unless they see it convenient or necessary. Convenient? Issei would think with a raised eyebrow. That's right, I haven't introduced myself yet, by the way. My name is Drag, I am the Welsh dragon of domination. His proud tone would be affected in his next words. Unfortunately, my incessant fighting with the other celestial dragon, Albion, caused us both to be sealed inside a sacred gear because of God and other lesser beings. Now, I reside within your sacred gear, which consists of the power of boosted gear. The dragon's tone would again become somewhat imposing and proud. At first this sacred gear seems to be very ordinary. But with me inside, things change drastically. Boosted gear? The word sacred gear would resonate in Issei's mind as he remembered how Yuma had mentioned it before. It's a complicated thing to understand, it would be best for you to experience sacred gear for yourself through training, Drake would say with a somewhat excited tone, as it had been a while since he had not detached his power. Something that shouldn't be too difficult, considering you have enough power for you to be able to communicate with me. Issei again remembered Yuma and how he had killed him, so he frowned at the memories. Alright. I'll try, since for sure, someone else will come back for me if they find out I'm still alive. Drake would nod with satisfaction inside the sacred gear. Wise decision, partner. Issei would give a small smile. Thanks for taking the trouble to explain everything to me, Drake. Drake would widen his green eyes a bit upon hearing Issei's statement, then give a small smile. No problem. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask. Issei simply nodded internally. But just as he was about to say goodbye to the dragon, something interrupted him. Ice, hey Ice, calling ground. Issei would look around somewhat exalted to see who was calling him. His exalted look changed to an exhausted one when he saw who it was. What's wrong, Mitsuda, Motohama? At the somewhat weary attitude of their stalwart friend, they both moved a little away from their desk and looked at him with a raised eyebrow. Is something the matter, Ice? It's been about a minute since the bell rang for the end of class and you're still sitting here like an idiot. Mitsuda would ask, somewhat worried about his friend. Plus you haven't gone out for either recess. Motohama would say, adjusting his glasses with one hand. Issei would slump towards the back of the chair as he looked up at the ceiling with a look somewhat lost in thought. I'm sorry guys. But I'm not feeling too well today. At Issei's response, Mitsuda and Motohama would look at each other with confusion on their faces, only to give a perverted smile and look at the brown-haired man again. I know of a way you could regain your spirits. Mitsuda would say with a big perverted grin as he pulled a cassette of dubious provenance out of his shirt. Issei would look at Mitsuda with a bored expression, then widen his eyes at the sight of what he held in his hands. Issei's reaction was not long in coming and he quickly jumped out of his chair to grab the cassette with a big perverted grin. Momo's new volume. Issei's perverted grin would falter a bit, seeing that the erotic image the cassette presented was having much less of an effect on him than usual. Though considering who he was, it was still having a lot of effect on him. Anyway, that was something that missed him to death. Mitsuda would hug Issei and Motohama by the neck with a big smile on his face. So what are we waiting for? Let's go to my house right now. At the bald man's house. That's right, show the monster who's boss, Momo. Mitsuda would say, while breathing heavily. I'm seriously thinking that this is the best volume of the whole series so far. Motohama would say, while holding a goofy grin on his face. Issei would be standing next to his two friends, watching the video rather strangely. Is it really that good? I like the previous ones much better, Issei would say as he began to watch the tape with more and more confusion. At his friend's question, Mitsuda and Motohama looked at him like he was crazy. Is something wrong with you? Motohama would ask with great surprise in his voice. Issei rubbed his hair with great exhaustion as he stood up from the floor of the room. I'm sorry guys. I'm not feeling well. Had too heavy a day. I'm going home to get some rest. Both friends would look at Issei with a raised eyebrow, then simply nod. Okay. Mitsuda would say. Feel better. Motohama would say. Issei would simply nod in thanks, then leave the room while still rubbing his hair tiredly. As Issei left the room, both friends looked at each other with some surprise. What the hell is wrong with him? Mitsuda would ask, to which Motohama would simply bow his shoulders, having no idea what could possibly be wrong with his friend. Issei came out of Mitsuda's house to see that even daylight was spreading through the streets. The protagonist looked at the streetlights to see that they were on. Quickly, he pulled his cell phone out of his pocket to see what time it was. Just like Drake said. It doesn't matter that it's nighttime, I'll be able to see everything as if it were still daytime. He would say to himself under his breath, then put his hands in his pockets and walk home. In the meantime, he could hear conversations that were at great distances. But he played it down, as it was something that had been happening to him since the early morning, and Drake had also explained to him that it was due to his condition as a demon. Seeing that he had a long way to go to get home, Issei decided to strike up a conversation with his new friend extraordinaire. "Drake, can you hear me?" Issei would think. "Strong and clear, mate." The voice would echo inside Issei's mind. "Does turning me into a demon make my virtues less? Holy virtues disappear by a large percentage?" Issei would ask, with clear doubt in his words. At Issei's question, Drake laughed loudly inside his head for a few seconds, causing the young man to become slightly annoyed. "Indeed, becoming a demon makes the evil in your soul grow to a great extent," Drake stated, very seriously. Issei's eyes widened slightly at the dragon's sudden change of attitude. Practically, in 1 second he was dying of laughter for the other to be so serious. "If so, why do I feel the opposite is happening to me?" Issei would ask with great doubt in his words. Drake would frown noticeably. "There's something I forgot to tell you. Issei, I have a question to ask you. Do you have any idea why fallen angels are fallen angels and why demons are demons?" The dragon would ask, with a serious tone in his words. Issei would raise his gaze to the night sky as he opted for a thoughtful face and folded his arms. "What, because they are like this? Well, the fallen angels fell from the sky for falling into the temptation of original sin, such as lying, murder, lust, among others." Issei would put a hand to his chin as he further emphasized his thoughts. "But demons are different in their own way. Since they were always corrupt angels since they were born. For that reason, they never had a chance to be in heaven because they have always been under sins." Exactly. Angels are the purest and most innocent beings in the world, even more than human children. Whereas fallen angels are the species that most resemble humans, although they are worse. Once a fallen angel falls before the temptation of a sin, it is almost impossible for him to redeem himself since he feels a great attraction to that sin, making them extremely dangerous. And if he were to somehow manage to untie himself from his sinner sins, he would never be the same again. That happens because a fallen angel will never again be pure and innocent as an angel, the dragon would say with seriousness in his words. "And what does that have to do with me?" Issei would think, while putting his 2 hands on the back of his neck and raising an eyebrow. "That's where I'm going, mate. Demons are beings corrupted to the core, like you said. But that happens for a reason, and that is that when they are born, the corruption of all the original sins darkens their soul, including the reincarnated ones, like you. This has a name, and it is called demon corruption. This makes no demon safe from sins, and unlike the fallen angels, no demon would think of redeeming themselves, as they are like that by nature." This would cause Issei to stop walking and widen his eyes at the new information. Drake would quickly clear his throat. Although, there are also strange cases where demons do not suffer from demonic corruption, though the cases are practically rare. The dragon would puff out his chest proudly as he gave a smile. "And as you may be thinking, you are one of those cases. Thanks to me, since I possess an incredible power and that makes that corruption cannot affect you in the least," the dragon would exclaim with clear pride in his words and then change to a somewhat amused tone. "Besides, if you remember, when we first met I told you it was your lucky day. And that was because I also did everything I could to take away your impulsive sexual appetites." "What?" Issei would shout out loud, causing the people passing around him to move a little away from him in fear. This made Drake chuckle a little under his breath. "You said it yourself, if I get a second chance, I promise not to be a moron again." "I didn't exactly say that." Issei would shout out loud again, causing people to turn away even more. Seeing the reaction of the people, Issei quickly calmed down and a small blush of embarrassment came out on his face. "Besides, I didn't want my sexual desire to disappear, I just wish I could control it." The brown-haired man would think with a much calmer tone. "That's exactly why I said I reduced your impulsive sexual appetite, that doesn't make you stop seeing women as something beautiful I guess. Now you won't act like an idiot in front of a woman who is well endowed, though that depends a lot on your conviction for that uncontrolled desire to disappear completely." The dragon's calm tone would change to one genuinely surprised. "Fuck. Even with my great power, I couldn't make your impulsive sexual appetite disappear completely, it was a disgustingly dense and giant mass. Drake would say, as he imagined a gigantic mass of white and slimy color. Issei would lower his head rather apologetically as he rubbed his cheek with a finger. Sorry. The brown-haired man would look to his side to see a small path that led to the fountain in the park. This caused Issei to remember Yuma again and lower his head sadly, only to raise his gaze with great determination and move towards the fountain. Issei perched near the fountain as he recalled all the events that had happened with great regret in his heart. Their date. The betrayal. His death. His promise. Issei clenched his fists tightly as he watched the fountain with great determination. I said that if I got a second chance, I would change my ways, and that I will. I'm sorry to interrupt your moment, but there is something important I must tell you, Drake's voice would say very seriously because of the harsh thoughts its bearer had been having. Issei raised his right hand to look at the green orb somewhat quizzically, giving Drake the signal to continue. In this last millennium, the demons and fallen angels have behaved very differently from their nature. They may have evolved for the better, and that would be a very good thing considering your status as a servant. Although, obviously, there are still demons and fallen angels that are evil, a clear example being that fallen angel and boss I mentioned. Drake's words would make Issei's body visibly relax. Apparently, he was thinking about that matter as well. Nevertheless, take precautions. Drake would warn, with the most serious tone that had come out of his mouth so far. Why are you still alive? The voice would cause Issei to abandon his conversation and look skyward, to widen his eyes as wide as they could go. Again, those wings, Issei would think with great fear as he watched a guy with a hat and black wings flying in place. Quickly, the brown-haired man looked around as he realized that the whole atmosphere of the environment had changed drastically, as if they were in another place. The subject would shake his head while looking at Issei seriously. I can't trust Rainer to do his job. But I never thought he couldn't with a mere human. Rainer? Issei would say as his expression denoted great fear, then take a step back. This is not the time to think about that. I have to get out of here or they'll kill me again. Well, I'll finish the job. Poorly done. The fallen angel would say as he made a spear of purple light appear in one of his hands. At this, Issei would widen his eyes even more in terror and take an incredible leap backwards. At this, the subject would raise an eyebrow. A normal human wouldn't be able to make such a leap, the man would think carefully, then bow his shoulders and throw the spear just the same. Issei would quickly cover himself with both of his arms while closing his eyes tightly. Will the same thing really happen again? Will I die here again, barely knowing why I'm being chased? Will I die not knowing who revived me? Issei would widen his eyes wide with great determination. If that damn artifact, the sacred gear, is so powerful, save me now. Issei would scream at the top of his lungs, causing a red light to cover his entire body for a few seconds, just as the spear impacted his arms. What? The guy would say, as he gritted his teeth and watched the big red flash. The man had no choice but to cover his face from that blinding light. Drake would find himself with a big impressed and proud smile as he witnessed what had happened. Awesome. The dragon would declare to himself as the light around Issei dissipated, revealing the brown man breathing heavily, wearing some sort of red gauntlet with a green gem in his right hand, which was slightly damaged by the light spear. Managed to activate his sacred gear without doing any training. But how is that possible? Drake would turn around to see something flashing a purple color. At this, the dragon would widen his eyes. I knew there was something off about this boy. His soul has a great affinity with dragons, and for that reason he was able to release it as it gave off a small hint of my energy. Drake would quickly look straight ahead with a frown. However, his body is not prepared to consume that much energy, so. Issei was still breathing heavily, and after a few seconds his eyes rolled back into his head and he collapsed to the ground. His sacred gear disappeared along with it, causing the fallen angel to look at him even more shocked than he already was. His body will sedate quickly. Drake would say, with great concern in his words. The fallen angel would frown, then create another spear of light. That took me by surprise. But it won't work a second time. He would say with a bit of anger in his words, to then throw the attack towards the unconscious Issei. The attack was about to come, but the spear was destroyed by an onslaught of crimson flames that appeared out of nowhere. The subject would raise his gaze with a raised eyebrow, seeing that a red-colored magic circle had appeared on the spot. That symbol, the stranger would say, looking at the magic circle symbol just before it disappeared. I'm sorry. But I can't let you kill my servant. The stranger would chuckle under his breath, then give a small bow. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be against the Gremory family. But you'd better take better care of your servant. People might mistake him for a wandering demon, as happened to me. The fallen angel would quickly abandon his bow when a bolt of lightning passed close to his face, but he never abandoned his smile. Calm down, Akeno. I'm sure this fallen angel will leave the area without creating conflict. Aridid would say as she watched Takeno with a smile. Takeno would run a hand over his face with a somewhat sadistic smile. Whatever you say, chairwoman. The stranger would again give a small bow, not abandoning his smile. Thank you for your consideration, heiress of the Gremory clan, Ria's Gremory. The fellow would quickly fly away as a wicked laugh could be heard in the background and black feathers fell from the sky. My name is Donasik. Make sure you don't forget that name if our paths cross again. Rias would change his smile to a serious and somewhat displeased expression once the man disappeared. What do we do with him, Rias? Akeno would ask as she watched Issei with a small smile. Rias would look seriously at Issei, then give a small sigh of exhaustion. Looks like we got there just in time and he was unharmed. So we'll just take him to his room. Akeno simply nodded with a smile, then carefully carried the boy. There was no one else around the area. Kaneko would say as she walked out through the trees. Good job, Kaneko. Rias would say with a small smile to then disperse the effect that had been created in the environment, making everything return to normal. End of the prologue. I guess the vast majority of chapters will be of this approximate length. Issei will be stronger than the original story, but nothing exaggerated. At least, up to a certain point in the plot. If you have any suggestions, questions or constructive criticism, feel free to share them. Without anything else to say, I hope you enjoyed this first part and I'll see you in the next one. If you don't wake up, I will kill you. If you don't wake up, I will cut you in pieces. The clock was slammed hard against the wall suddenly, courtesy of Issei. The protagonist would turn around in his bed even while sitting with a karate stance as he looked all around with an icy expression on his face. I'd say good morning, but you don't seem to be in a good mood, the voice in Issei's hand made the young man visibly calm down. Issei looked around with a bored look on his face, feeling that he had experienced this before. I think waking up alive is quite comforting. Luckily you were being followed by your allies, otherwise you wouldn't be here right now. Issei rubbed his hair and sighed with great exhaustion. Great. 2 days, 2 attempts to make me disappear. Issei would stare at his school bag intently for several seconds, then frown. I think I'll do something about that, the brown-haired man thought. Chapter 1. The Nun. See you later. Issei exclaimed as he adjusted his shoes and propped the suitcase behind his shoulder. Whatever you say, bye. Issei's father's voice echoed, causing him to shake his head in disgust. Issei would walk out of his house only to look towards the window of his home to make sure his parents weren't watching him. Suddenly, Issei ran off in the complete opposite direction of Kuo Academy. Are you sure about this, partner? Drake's voice would echo inside Issei. Issei just gave a small smile, then spoke telepathically to his partner. My parents won't notice since they don't care much about my academic results and other matters around me. If I miss a day or two at the academy they won't notice. I'm really glad you decided to train so soon. Drake would mention with a somewhat excited tone. The way Issei was, the dragon never expected him to take the whole thing so seriously. But if he thought about it, there was something very important at stake and Issei knew it very well. Issei would continue running at full speed towards a nearby park as his face grew serene at Drake's words. They already tried to make me disappear twice and they say the third time's the charm. But they won't take my life, just a defeat. I like the way you think, partner. A little later that day, in the park. Are you sure this will do? Issei would think as he gritted his teeth hard from doing some push-ups with a railing found in the park. If you increase your stamina, strength, speed and other attributes, you'll be able to awaken sacred gear at will in no time. But it will require much more effort for you to master it completely. Drake would reply with a wise tone in his words. Issei would fall to the ground exhausted while breathing heavily. It's enough for me to wake her up. I don't want to get killed just for having this thing inside me. No offense. Drake would chuckle internally, making Issei a little confused. What's so funny? Nothing important, it's just that all my bearers feel special when they get to awaken my power, and you're the first bearer who doesn't seem to like the idea of being the dragon of domination. Issei shook his head, then wiped away his sweat and opened his suitcase. Inside was a large amount of sandwiches and 2 bottles of water, but no book. I'm not the dragon of domination, you are. Issei took a bottle of water. You've been working out for 2 hours already. You should take a little break, as your body isn't used to training like this. Drake would say with a somewhat concerned tone, causing Issei to give a small smirk. Are you telling me that a demon's body is quite weak? Not if you train it properly. Although it doesn't compare in the slightest to a dragon's body. The dragon would reply, with a clear tone of pride in his last words. Issei would get up from the ground and close his suitcase, then start running in the park. That sounds great. But unfortunately I'm a demon and I have no choice but to overexert my body for quick results. Greg would smile to himself as he saw how his carrier was overtaxing himself too much. Maybe it was a good thing the brat is a scrawny nobody, because now that he awakened his power, he has no choice but to train to control it, otherwise his life will hang in the balance. Drake would think to himself with a pleased smile, then turn serious. Speaking of that thread. It looks like that demon already wanted to reveal her true identity to Issei. Finally, he would bow his shoulders with an apathetic expression. I guess she'll have to wait another day or two. Meanwhile, at Kuo Academy. She didn't come to school, and she didn't even pass by on the way to school. Rias, Akeno and Kiba would look seriously at Kaneko for the resentful information. The four demons were at the occult club in the old school building. Shall we think the worst? Kiba would ask as he rubbed his shoulder with a serious look on his face. Akeno would lean back even more on the couch as he watched Kiba, who was on the other one. I don't think so. The demoness would reply with her typical smile. Rias would nod at Akeno's words, at the same time looking at some papers he had on top of his counter. Akeno is right. Issei's house is located near Kuo Academy. I don't think the fallen angels would have wanted to go that far into my territory. So, what do you propose? Kiba would say with a smile, not paying too much attention to the subject. He didn't even know the boy, so he didn't care much about that matter. Rias would look at Kaneko with a smile. Kaneko, I need you to keep an eye on Haidu Issei's house first thing tomorrow morning. If you see that he doesn't leave for school, try to infiltrate the house and find out if he's there. If he's not, he's simply dead. Rias would say as he bowed his shoulders at his last words, returning to his papers. Akeno would simply chuckle somewhat strangely, looking at Rias. It's a pity. Just when you had the chance to add someone else into your peerage. Rias would rest his hand on the counter, his expression somewhat downcast. That's quite an addition to my peerage, considering he took my 8 pawn pieces. Speaking of which, it's very strange that his soul never bonded 100% with the demonic pieces. Now we'll have to find his grave to extract the pieces from his body, if he really died. Kaneko would say with her typical empty tone, while eating a chocolate. Rias would leave the papers on the table, giving a tired sigh. It's a bummer that the bonding didn't turn out as I expected. Because of that, I can't track him with my pieces. It's certainly a very curious specimen. Akeno would say as he licked his lips. A few moments later, in the park. Issei would continue running through the huge park. About an hour had passed and he was still running without stopping, although he was going at a fairly moderate speed. A large amount of sweat was pouring down his face, but even so his facial expression looked very calm. That was thanks to the fact that he was speaking to his fellow intern. Hey, now that I'm in doubt, earlier you said that cases of a demon without demonic corruption were rare. Do you have any idea if there are any others alive that are like me? I mean, after all, you told me you were locked up a millennium ago, and maybe you know someone. Vanishing dragon. Issei would stop in his tracks as he noticed how Drake's voice had a much more serious tone than usual. I don't know if he's awakened yet, but there's a small chance he's either a demon or a fallen angel. So you two would be special cases among respective species. However, that doesn't mean that you two will become friends. Noticing the tense atmosphere that had been generated by the last question between the two, Issei was forced to change the subject as he resumed his jog absent-mindedly. Speaking of Albion, you told me that their fight was a millennium ago. So how many years can supernatural beings live? I don't know exactly how old I am. But dragons were the first supernatural species to populate this world. First came Big Red, and after a while Albion and I were born. Calculating the times, I think I am about 200,000 years old. As he had forewarned, the conversation had again shifted to a calm atmosphere. But Issei did not expect such a response. 200,000 wait, what? Issei would shout in his mind, slowing down in his tracks as he had an expression of complete shock on his face. If I follow your logic, how the hell is it that my mistress is still at the same school? Supernatural beings have a period where their aging slows down almost completely. It's from 21 until death. Probably, when she turns 21 she'll have to go back to hell, that or start erasing memories like crazy. Issei would put both hands on his knees, breathing shakily. The young man sat down on a nearby bench to rest as he rummaged through his briefcase for food and water. So, considering that all supernatural beings have the same life expectancy, how old can you see a supernatural being physically speaking? I might be a good example of that. Considering I had an appearance of 40 years when I died, I can say that every 5,000 years of mine is a human year. Although, obviously that 5,000 years is a lot of time, regardless of whether you're a supernatural being or not. Now, do you understand that? Issei set his bottle aside as he rubbed his cheek quizzically. I think so. Most likely they'll all still meet at that academy in the future, because it's no coincidence that out of all the schools, just your mistress is at that one. Issei rubbed his hair in confusion as he didn't understand exactly what Drake meant by the latter, but quickly widened his eyes when a realization hit him very hard. Wait a second. If I'm a demon now, does that mean shit? How the fuck am I going to explain to my parents? I was wondering at what point you'd realize, Drake would say with an amused tone in his voice. On the next day. I'm leaving. Kaneko would watch from afar as Issei walked out of her house with her typical stoic expression, though she changed her face a bit as she saw Issei look towards her house with a mysterious aura and left in the opposite direction of Kuo Academy. At least he's alive. I'd better get him to the president before his luck runs out. Kaneko thought as she began to follow him from close behind. But first, I'd like to know what exactly he's doing. Issei would keep running with a smile on his face, oblivious to his spy. I thought I'd be sore all over today, but I feel fantastic. Issei exclaimed with a somewhat goofy grin on his face. Good thing I pointed you to the proper stretches, or else you'd be lying in your bed like a dead man right now. Also, you should thank your demon body. I wonder at what point your excessive improvement will slow down, the dragon would exclaim in a deductive voice. Issei would simply increase his smile as he began to run with increased speed. The longer the growth spurt lasts, the better. Being a demon has its advantages. What the hell is he doing? Kaneko would think as she quickly followed him. 3 hours later. Shit, I'm completely exhausted already, Issei thought as he wiped the sweat from his face and tried to regulate his breathing. Issei was in the same park, sitting on one of the benches facing the street. It's normal for you to be tired. You've been jogging for 3 hours with almost no breaks. Issei simply smiled nervously and would subsequently set about eating a sandwich. Doing all this leaves me completely hungry. Issei would think, then take a big bite of the sandwich with a goofy grin on his face. Ouch. Issei would set his food aside, seeing as a girl who was dressed as a nun stumbled as she walked up on the sidewalk. Issei would drop her sandwich in the suitcase to offer her help. Are you okay? Issei would ask with a slightly concerned tone as he held out one of his hands. The young woman would look at Issei with a smile as she accepted the gesture of help. Yes, I'm fine. I'm just clumsy. Issei just increased her smile. No problem. The brown would quickly kneel down to gather the things the young girl had dropped, causing her to be a bit surprised by the boy's very gentle gesture. Issei rose from the floor with all of the nun's belongings with a friendly smile. This is yours. Thank you very much. The nun would say with a slight blush as she made a small bow. Issei waved her hand dismissively, indicating that it was nothing. She was about to return to her pew, but noticed that the nun seemed to have a confused look on her face as she looked in various directions. Is something wrong? Issei asked as he closed his suitcase without first removing one of his sandwiches. The young woman would lower her head in embarrassment at the protagonist's question. Well, it's just I'm new around here and I don't know where I am, she would say with a blush of embarrassment on her face. Issei would give her a chuckle, extending the sandwich towards her. If you want I can help you. It wouldn't be a bother since I have the whole day off. Are you serious? Thank you so much. The nun would exclaim as she accepted Issei's sandwich with a big smile. Hi do Issei, why were you absent for 2 days at the academy? Shit. Was all Issei could think as he began to sweat excessively. Issei would turn his face like a robot to see that his academy's mascot was looking at him with his typical expressionlessness on his face. Issei's frozen expression would change to a very confused one at the sight of Kaneko. Kaneko? Why isn't she at the academy? Kaneko quickly grabbed Issei's hand and started dragging him towards the academy. Let's go now, before the principal expels you for vandalism. For vandalism? Issei would think with a roll of his eyes. He would quickly glance at the nun with a slight expression of guilt. I'm sorry, but I won't be able to help you. Ask someone here for directions. They'll surely help you. The nun would just smile and nod, then look at Issei's sandwich and take a small bite. It's really good. The nun would think with a blush on her cheeks. On the way to the academy. Kaneko, can you explain to me what's going on? Issei would ask as he tried to free himself from his powerful grip. Kaneko would let go and stare into his eyes, causing Issei to become a bit serious. What I did was stop you from killing that nun. What? Issei would roll his eyes at the answer. Kaneko would narrow her eyes. Maybe that nun belongs to the angel faction and you'd get the president in trouble if you killed her without warning. At Kaneko's reply, Issei would widen her eyes in surprise. You know about the factions. Wait a minute, you're at Kuo Academy and the woman who reincarnated me is there. Issei would point at Kaneko with wide eyes. You're a demon. At Issei's shout, everyone around would look at the boy with confusion, then go about their business. Kaneko would quickly cover his mouth while looking to the side. I don't know how you found out about the factions, but you're coming with me right now. She would whisper under her breath. Issei would just nod, seeing that the little girl didn't seem to be dangerous. Besides, she would most likely take him to this president and he would have the chance to meet the woman who reincarnated him. Although he was no longer human, Issei was very grateful to her for giving him another chance to live. A few moments later. "We're here, President." Kaneko passed into the living room, giving a slight bow to Rias as she sat in an armchair quietly. "I was already beginning to think we were unlucky," Rias think aloud. "I never imagined that the president of the occult club was a demon," Issei say, as he walked into the living room and looked in several directions, being amazed by the cleanliness of the place. Akeno, Kiba and Rias look at Kaneko with a raised eyebrow. "I don't know how, but he already knows everything. He made it clear to me when we were heading to the academy." The small girl replied with her typical expression as she would grab a box that was on the small wooden table, starting to pull out different sweets. "Well, I guess that saves us the more complicated introductions," Kiba mentioned as he gestured with his hand at his side. Issei would immediately pick up on Kiba's intention and would sit down next to the red-haired man. Issei moved his legs excitedly as he looked around at everyone present. "Kaneko already mentioned your piece to me, can you tell me what yours are?" Again, everyone but Kaneko would look at Issei in surprise at his knowledge. How does he know so much? Rias think, frowning slightly. "My name is Kiba Yudo, I am the knight." Kiba introduced himself with a small friendly smile as he bowed his hand. "I don't know why, but I don't really like this guy's face," Issei would think with a slight grimace as he shook the knight's hand. "My name is Akeno Himejima and I am the queen. It's a pleasure to meet you, Haidu." Akeno would introduce himself with his typical sassy look, causing Issei to blush slightly and make an idiotic face, but he would quickly shake his face and put on a serious expression. "Remember what you promised. It will be hard, but I will keep it." After that thought, Issei gave a friendly smile and gently greeted the queen. Finally, Rias stood up from his desk and placed one of his hands on his chest, making Issei look like an idiot for a second, but he would quickly correct it. "My name is Rias Gremory and I am the king. Therefore, you are my servant." The red-haired woman replied as everyone spread their bat wings, Issei included. "Welcome to my family." Rias say as she would widen his smile a bit more, only to have his eyes take on a slightly dangerous gleam. Before Rias could say another word, Kaneko quickly stood up from her seat. "I found Haidu talking to a nun without him feeling like killing her. That means somehow he didn't suffer from demonic corruption." Kaneko exclaimed quickly, interrupting Rias. Everyone looked at Issei with wide eyes at the statement. "That's fine. Thanks for letting me know, Kaneko." Rias say, making Kaneko sit back down on the couch. Rias would sit at his desk as she put a hand to his chin. "Demonic corruption is supposed to happen 100%, but you know a lot about factions, and on top of that you don't have demonic corruption, that just leads me to think that. Effectively, Miss Gremory." The thick voice that came from Issei's hand made everyone look at the young man a little surprised, except for Rias who had a somewhat triumphant smile on his face. As if he had hit the jackpot. "I never thought I'd have the security under my servitude, but it's a pleasant surprise to know." Bragg's maniacal laughter be heard throughout the room, and this time everyone had to be confused and surprised by it, including Issei. "Service? I will never serve a demon, nor an angel, or fallen angel. Have you forgotten how they left our kind after the Holy War? The only one I will listen to is my partner." "Hey Drag, you never told me about this." Issei thinks somewhat uncomfortable with the situation. Rias simply bow his shoulders with a smile. "As you say. Just the same, it was the dragon's fault that their own kind ended up that way. Though I should also thank them, because if it hadn't been for the constant dragon fights that were going on in all the regions, the Holy War wouldn't have ended on good terms regarding the three factions. Battles. They only came together when the battle between the Dragon of the Apocalypse, Big Red and Office nearly destroyed all existence. Otherwise, they would have continued with their stupid ideas of world domination. Moreover, if the demonic revolution had not happened in those times, I am sure the demons would have continued to fight for power, but the countless and massive casualties they inflicted on themselves made them ridiculous as a species. And look how they ended up now, being tamer and smaller than mere cockroaches." The dragon say with a defiant and amused tone in his voice. Rias would lower her gaze and clench her teeth tightly at what the dragon mentioned. Apparently, he had totally crushed his through the verbal argument. "Hey Drag, let's calm down. Please." Issei would scold with a frown. Was it so necessary to resort to something that happened over 1,000 years ago? It's fine that as supernatural beings they can live much longer. But 1,000 years is 1,000 years, and even if it's an ephemeral part of their long life, it's still an absurdly gigantic amount of time. Do I need to tell you how many is 1,000 years in days? It's okay, partner. It's just that it gave me a bit of courage, Drake mentioned, somewhat regretful for getting carried away in the heat of the moment. Don't worry, I'm sure they'll understand. Issei say with an understanding smile. Rias give a tired sigh, causing Issei to look at her a bit embarrassed. Relax, there's no need for you to apologize. You're not the one who said all those words after all. Riaz would state with a kind smile, causing Issei to give her a smile. Thank you, President. Riaz shook his head, then looked at him seriously. Listen to me well, as you are now part of my entourage, you will have to join the occult club. You will also have to do some errands as a demon that humans ask for and other things that will raise our reputation as demons. Issei would just nod in understanding. Drake had already told me about these things, so I already have some idea what it's about. Riaz would just nod in satisfaction at Issei's answer. That's very good, because it saves a lot of explaining. Now, I'd like to ask you a question. Issei would look at she somewhat intrigued. Anyone you like, President. Riaz would frown slightly. Why did you miss 2 days at the academy? Do you not realize how your parents will get if they find out? Issei would simply laugh dryly, causing everyone to look at him in confusion. My parents? They're better off the farther I stay away from home. They can't stand me much because they always wanted a daughter and somehow that frustration was getting on me over the years. They tolerate me anyway, though. Well, this might be a problem. Riaz said with a hand on his chin, while seriously observing how Issei couldn't create a magic circle. Issei have a depressive aura as he leaned against a wall. Drake had already told me. The amount of magic reserves in my body are almost nil. Riaz simply shake his head somewhat amused as she thought of a way to complete the errands without the need for Issei to use a magic circle. I know. Riaz snapped her fingers with a smile. At this, Issei snapped out of his depression and looked at her intently. We can use a more conventional method, like going house to house. Issei quickly shake his head with great disapproval. No, 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 no. What will happen to my training? Oh, you're right. Riaz looked up at the ceiling as he searched for a possible solution. Can't you lend him the bike outside? That way I'd get the errands done quickly and I'd get a good warm-up in as well while I was at it. We'd kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Greg's voice echoed in the room and both young men had to agree with that idea. Alright, but be careful. The bike is a Keno's. Riaz warned as she handed some pamphlets to Issei. Don't worry. Issei exclaimed with a big grin between his teeth, then quickly leave the place. Riaz would change his smile to a serious look. She put one of his fingers to his ear and a small magic circle would come out of it. I need you to keep an eye on Issei. He doesn't have enough magic to use magic circles and something might happen to her along the way. The customers are the usual. A familiar voice would echo through the magic circle. As you command, President. On the streets of the city. Issei go at a great speed on the bike, but he didn't seem to be tired at all. Apparently, the effects of the training were starting to show much faster than normal. Though, of course, he wasn't someone very normal to say the least. Partner, why do you follow his orders without reproach? At Drake's question, Issei put on a thoughtful face. It's true that I want to awaken my sacred gear now so I can defend myself. But I also owe the president a lot for reincarnating me and I think this is a good way to repay her. I guess fulfilling my services will make her happy and that way I'll feel happy too. Issei smiled. Besides, she doesn't seem to be a bad person despite being a demon. Just like everyone else, they seem like people I can trust. Greg lowered his head as he thought carefully about his bearer's words. I have to agree with you. Their attitudes completely surprised me. Issei increased his smile as he saw that his partner thought the same thing. Greg would frown at not understanding certain things. Still, in all this time, just after the Holy War they mastered their instincts. And that they did it together with the fallen angels seems even stranger to me. There's something that doesn't quite add up in this story. By the way, Drake, there's something that's been haunting me ever since you told me about the life expectancy of supernatural beings. At Issei's hesitation, Drake would step out of his little world and turn his attention to Issei. How did you manage to have so many carriers if you were only sealed for 1,000 years? Issei asked with genuine interest. Drake would chuckle a little under his breath due to his bearer's curiosity. That's simple. All of my bearers are always human and have never become demons. That and other factors make my number of bearers somewhat level to speak of only 1 millennium. Obviously, you're the first bearer to become a demon. And while we're on the subject, I'll also tell you that supernatural women are extremely infertile because they can only have between 1 to 3 children in their entire long life. There is also the possibility of a supernatural man impregnating a human, but that is highly frowned upon and happens once in a very, very long time. And yes, before you ask, if someone is half human and half something, they will still have a normal lifespan unless they get involved with some faction. Issei would squeal in surprise. Wow, Drake. You have all the knowledge in the world, but I guess that's normal if you lived this many years. I wonder how smart those who lived that many years would be. Having absolute knowledge doesn't make you smarter. It just makes no one in the world can call you ignorant. Drake exclaimed with a clear wise tone in his words. The conversation with Drake would be suddenly interrupted when the whole atmosphere changed drastically. Issei did a big braking with the bike while looking in several directions, gritting his teeth. Shit. It's this atmosphere again and I know it can't mean anything good. He would think, quickly getting off the bike. It took me a while to find you, but I was finally able to. Issei quickly turned around. Who's there? Issei see the black wings again, causing him to frown and automatically, his arm glowed red. Boost. Issei would look at his arm with wide eyes as he saw that he had activated his sacred gear just by thinking about it in a split second. Besides that strange sound that made him feel that much stronger. The black-winged woman would be slowly descending from the sky until she touched the ground. A boosted gear. I see you haven't been wasting your time these past 4 days, but a little toy like that won't be enough to beat me. The woman would widen her eyes as she felt how something cold and metallic was brushing the surface of her neck. Sorry to interrupt your grand entrance, but you won't hurt Haidu. The woman sidelong glanced back with a small smile. I guess you're another slave of that Gremory, or am I wrong? My name is Kiba Yudo, it's a pleasure to meet you. Kiba would say, flashing a condescending smile. Oh, Prince Charming has arrived. Issei would say, showing complete reluctance to accept help from Kiba. Prince Charming? Kiba thought with a roll of his eyes. My name is Kalwerner and you do me the favor of putting down your sword. I didn't come with the intention of fighting, just to warn you. Kiba's sword would further squeeze Kalwerner's neck, causing the woman to lose her smile as a small trickle of blood ran down her neck. I think you can still talk without letting my guard down. Kiba would reply, still holding his condescending smile. Kalwerner smiled once more. We're with a group of fallen angels in the abandoned church of Kuo, just outside their territory. So what of that? Thought Issei with a raised eyebrow. One of our new companions arrived today and she had traces of demon on her belongings. We quickly asked her if she had run into anyone and if they had tried to harm her and she mentioned the brown-haired boy. Kalwerner stated, pointing at Issei. Kiba shook his head. And how can you know it was him? At that question, Kalwerner gave Issei a sly smile. Because the nun explained his physique to us very well and coincidentally we have another girl who also knows him very well. Issei would lower his head and clench his fists tightly. Yuma. The woman folded her arms, looking sideways at Kiba. I'm just telling them to stay out of our business and that way we'll avoid unwanted circumstances. Kiba withdrew the sword with a gentle smile. Surely it was a misunderstanding. Kalwerner would give a sideways smile. Yes, a misunderstanding. After those words, he soared through the skies and disappeared with a magic circle, causing the whole atmosphere to return to normal. Kiba disappeared his sword and changed his smile to a somewhat worried look when he saw Issei's expression. Issei stopped clenching his fists. He would pick up his bike and start pedaling. I'll go run errands. Issei mentioned, half of his face shadowed. End of chapter. I decided to do something different regarding the age of the non-human beings. Before you ask, Office and Trihixa were born some time after Big Red. Especially Office, if we consider how small she is in the original story, or at least, the supposed age she looks. The problem is that I'm forced to change her appearance from a child to a much more adult one, maybe 23 or 24 years old in physical appearance, because it would be illogical for her to look so young, being that she fought against Trihixa 1,000 years ago. I'm just warning you about this so you won't be surprised when Office is described as a mature woman and not a girl in her first appearance. Now, let's move on to the important points of the translation. I did the first half as I did the previous time, but I decided to follow Victorious' advice in the second half. I am writing this because I realized that I had several mistakes to change the world if I am not mistaken. Luckily, I think I understand most of the mistakes I made, but the problem is that I realized it quite late in the translation, so I would have to change most of the last half, and doing that would take time, and I don't want to leave the update for tomorrow. On the bright side, I was able to figure out my mistake. I promised to improve that problem I had with the translation in the next chapter, and as much as possible, I hope that mistake won't happen again. By the way, I know it was a pretty childish one. That's my fault for having such a basic English and not realizing it. Omitting all this, if you read any other writing mistake or any other problem in this translation, please tell me and I will make an effort to try to improve it. Happy New Year. Thank you so much. Issei shouted as he carefully closed the door and got on the bike. As soon as he started pedaling, he put a stupid grin on his face. After a week, I finally get to finalize an order. I'm sure the president will be very happy. Issei thought with great joy as he rode at a high speed on his bicycle through the streets. You were lucky that person only called you to read and discuss those strange comics. Otherwise, your account would still be 0. A voice in Issei's mind would declare, with a bit of grace in its last words. At this, Issei frowns. Hey, don't be like that. It was just a joke. Issei lowered his gaze as he thought carefully. It's not that. Are you thinking about those two girls again? Drake's voice sounded much more serious. Issei became serious as he pedaled even faster. That's right, it's been a week and I didn't get any information from the blonde girl. It makes me quite angry because she seemed like a nice person and it's more than obvious that Yuma must not have anything good planned for her. I just hope she's alright. He finally lowered his head regretfully, causing Drake to be a bit surprised. It's rather curious to see how a demon cares for a nun, being that they are natural enemies. Probably, if you ask the Grimoire to go rescue her, she'll want to shove a stick up your ass to make you come to your senses. Issei trembled with fear at Drake's last words. That's exactly why I didn't say anything to him. I also know that going to the church alone would be suicide. It's true that I can already control my boosted gear a bit, but I still have a long way to go to defeat 3 fallen angels. Besides, we're not sure if there are only 3 of them. Issei rubbed his hair in great frustration. No way. He thought internally, then gave a weary sigh and looked seriously ahead. I guess I'll let it go, because there's nothing I can do. Line jump. Good job. Riaz congratulated with a big smile on his face as she saw that Issei had successfully completed his first assignment as a demon. It was nothing. Issei rubbed his hair with a nervous smile on his face. Riaz sat on top of his desk while holding a slightly mischievous smile on his face. Well, I had told you earlier that I would give you a reward when you successfully completed your first assignment. What do you want? Riaz had studied Issei in this week and knew very well that his 2 best friends were total perverts. When she saw her friends behaving that way, she assumed Issei wasn't much different, but the protagonist surprised her by seeing that he hardly even flinched at obscene thoughts. Obviously, she had noticed that for every meeting at the club, Issei made somewhat idiotic looks for a small second when looking at Akeno's body or her own. Perhaps, unlike his 2 friends, he was only affected by bodies that were very well endowed. Obviously, she didn't know that if it wasn't for Drake, Issei might be even worse than her 2 best friends. Basically, Riaz had no idea that Drake could suppress a large part of Issei's inordinate sexual urges, in addition to demonic corruption. And that every day, thanks to the willpower the protagonist had, those extreme sexual appetites were disappearing more and more. Issei looked seriously at Riaz, causing him to be surprised by his face. I want you to give me the day off tomorrow. It's Sunday, and since I'm not going to the academy, it's a perfect opportunity to train all day and increase my power. Is that okay? Replied Riaz with clear confusion in his words. For the short time she had to get to know him, she thought he was one of those closet perverts and was going to ask to touch her breasts, but she was quite surprised by his response. Issei clenched his fists tightly with a smile. Well, did you hear that, Drake? Strong and clear, partner. It's a great opportunity to awaken your boosted gear to the 2nd level. That sounds great. See you Monday, President. Issei would shout loudly, waving goodbye to his boss and rocketing out of the place. Yeah, see you at the academy, Riaz would say to nothing as he raised his hand slightly with a frozen expression on his face. I guess sexually decimating him won't be an option. Oh, at least, not for now. I should wait to see how he performs in the future. Line jump. I need to take a break. Issei would wipe the sweat off his forehead while breathing heavily. The young man found himself working out in the same park as usual. It was 5 o'clock in the afternoon and he had already been training for a lot of hours, so it was time for a break. Issei opened his bag and took out a sandwich and a bottle of water while he sat down on a bench in the park to take a break. He looked around with a small smile as he watched the children having fun at the different games as people enjoyed a hamburger at the local restaurant. Honestly, it was quite a relaxing atmosphere. It was something that helped distract him a bit from what the world was really like. Read your fate. Find out your good or bad destiny through the numbers. Find out your lucky number. Issei would look with some interest at the bald old man who was passing right in front of him with some sort of cart that was made of wood. One side had a corrugation that carried a large amount of coins and bills, while in the middle, it had 2 small boxes that said good luck and bad luck, respectively. Issei would get up from his seat with a smile and raise his hand to the old man, who would stop his cart with a smile at the sight of a new customer. Are you seriously going to buy one of those stupid things? Asked Drake with a tone of disapproval. This will help me clear my head a little. Honestly, I can't stop thinking that I've helped almost nothing in the capture of the 2 wandering demons that happened a few days ago. Issei thought, making Drake understand the frustration his bearer was going through right now. He would probably be seeing himself as useless right now. Hello young man, would you like to see your good luck number, your bad luck number, or both? It costs 500 yen each. The bald old man asked with a friendly smile on his face. Issei grimaced a little internally at the price. He wanted to buy both, but it wouldn't be good for his allowance. I'd like to know my good luck number. The protagonist stated with a friendly smile. The old man would gladly nod as he received the money from Issei and placed it in the cart, then put his hand in one of the boxes and closed his eyes tightly. Thought Drake to himself as he noticed something strange coming from the old man. Here it is. The old man would say, pulling a small piece of paper out of the box, then handing it to Issei. Issei received the paper with a slight grateful nod, then turning it over to check the number. 25, Issei said as he rubbed his hair with some confusion. Noticing the boy's confusion, the old man smiled and proceeded to explain to him what that number meant. 25 is your lucky number. No doubt that number will mean something very important to you in the future. It could be a date, a count, a raffle number, or anything else that has to do with numbers. Oh, I understand, thank you very much. Issei dismissed the old man with a small bow. The old man did the same with a mysterious smile on his face, then went on his way. Issei sat back down on the bench as he took his food again and continued to eat it gladly. He pocketed the small piece of paper without taking much notice of what the old fortune teller mentioned. Hello? Issei opened his eyes somewhat confused by the familiar voice, only to widen them and start coughing in an exaggerated manner due to his choking. Oh, I'm sorry. I really didn't mean to. Issei took a large drink of water and would set his bottle aside to look at the young woman standing in front of him with a huge smile between her teeth. Hi, glad to hear you're well. Issei would say to the blonde girl while giving her a big hug, making the young girl blush slightly. But she reciprocated the hug anyway. It's good to be able to see you again, Issei would break away from the hug with a smile. Issei Haidu. It's a pleasure. Issei would bow her hand, causing the nun to shake it with a smile. Asia Argento. It is also a pleasure. The nun would say with a beautiful smile, making Issei a little nervous about her naive beauty. Issei would quickly put his hands in his pockets after remembering a very important piece of information. Asia just watched him somewhat confused by his quick change of attitude. Is something wrong? Asked a blonde somewhat worried by Issei's expression. Nothing, it's just that you know. The fallen angels already told you that I'm a demon and I really don't care that you are a demon. I can see that you are a very good person and for that reason I came to this park once again in hopes of finding you. Asia lowered her head somewhat apologetically. Since you had to leave so quickly last time, we didn't have time to get to know each other. Issei smiled to see that Asia did not possess any prejudice towards him. This really made him happy. Issei would grab Asia's arm, causing the blonde to be surprised by the sudden action. Do you want to have some fun for a while? I'm sure it must not be fun to be in an abandoned church for so long. Like friends? Asia asked with a glint of happiness in her eyes. Issei looked at her somewhat quizzically at her attitude. That's right, like friends. Issei's words caused Asia to give him a big hug, surprising and blushing the brown-haired man for the sudden action. Issei quickly replied to the hug somewhat flustered by the excessive approach towards a woman. Oh, at least, this was excessive for him, since he had never been in contact with a woman for so long, except for his mother. But obviously, he doesn't even remember that anymore because he was a baby, after all. Something's wrong? Issei would ask with a definite nervous tone. I'm very happy. At that statement, Issei was confused. I'm really happy. I've never had a friend before. At Asia's answer, Issei gave a small empathetic smile and hugged her even tighter. He was definitely going to ask her how her story went during their meeting. Line jump. Issei and Asia had a really good time for a few hours. First they went to eat at the restaurant in the park, then they took a little walk around the place. The brown-haired Issei bought her some gifts and got different trophies in the machines, making Asia very happy in those moments. They both had a great time for 3 hours, but it was time for the party to end. Asia and Issei were sitting on a bench in the middle of the park, admiring a beautiful fountain. Issei was eating an ice cream very happily as well as Asia, until the blonde got a little alarmed and looked at her watch. Sorry, I have to go. Asia quickly got up from the bench and would give Issei a small bow, showing her appreciation. Oh, no problem. Issei said somewhat curiously. That was too sudden, he thought to himself with a rather doubtful tone, but he would let it go. Asia gave him a sweet smile as a farewell. Thank you so much for today. I really had a great time. Asia lowered her head a little, making Issei a little confused. It was really nice to have had the chance to hang out with a friend. I'm really grateful. Asia gave another bow, making Issei a little nervous about her patronizing attitude. You don't need to do that. After all, I had a pretty good time myself. Thanks to you, I was able to distract myself a bit from my problems. Asia raised her gaze with a smile and would raise her hand in a gesture of farewell. Issei did the same as he watched her leave. Issei's smile decayed into a serious look as Asia was lost from his sight. Are you worried about her, partner? Drake's voice echoed inside Issei's mind, causing the protagonist to grimace slightly in disgust. Something smells fishy to me. That goodbye sounded like I'd never see her again. Issei thought as he stood up from his seat and looked off into nothingness. I don't think they're going to harm her. I mean, I don't get to see anything coming from her. That means she's really nothing special, or at the moment she's too weak to get any good potential out of her. I doubt the fallen angels want her for other than a reincarnation as a fallen angel. And if everything turns out as I have planned, there won't be a noticeable difference in his personality, since the reincarnation of a fallen angel can't corrupt you like a demonic reincarnation would. Drake would give his point of view on the situation. Issei softened her gaze upon hearing Drake. If you say so, I suppose it will be so. She thought to herself with a bit of pity before beginning to jog towards her home. Well, if I think about it, it's better for her to become a fallen angel than to die. Maybe I should stop thinking about it. Drake cut the connection and frowned. However, it wouldn't be the first time I've made a mistake. I just hope the brat forgets all this and starts to focus 100% on training him, otherwise he won't last even 5 seconds against Hacker Yuiku. He thought the great Welsh dragon, then sighed. I only hope that our fated meeting is a long time away because my bearer has a long way to go. Perhaps he can turn out to be the weakest of all the existing securities so far. I will have to pray that the case of Albion is exactly the same, otherwise we won't have a chance. Finally Drake said with a disgusted expression. Honestly, he would have told Issei that he had the reputation of being the worst bearer yet, but he had liked the boy too much to tell him. Blind jump. Issei left the Kuo Academy with a blank look in his eyes while he watched as Kiba was once again surrounded by women asking for his attention. I don't know why, but with each passing day, I feel more like kicking your ass. The protagonist thought as he watched the scene with great jealousy. Issei woke up from his vengeful little world when he looked to the sides of him and realized that Mitsuda and Motohama were not with him. Issei rubbed his cheek with his index finger, clearly confused. Now that I think about it, they weren't with me at recess either. Where the hell have they been? Issei put thoughts of him aside as he heard a large amount of threatening female screams coming from his right. Issei rolled his eyes as he saw Mitsuda and Motohama running at great speed in great fear while an angry mob of women with wooden swords were chasing them. Hey look, there's Ice. Mitsuda yelled with all her energy. Human shield in sight. Motohama declared, causing Issei to visibly twitch at what he heard. Before he could do anything, both Mitsuda and Motohama got behind Issei and pushed him towards the enraged women. The girls from the kendo club had the decency to catch him before he fell to the ground. Hey, the problem isn't with you, so get out of the way now or. Issei raised both hands in a defensive gesture, making the women look at him carefully. Wow. Can you tell me what the hell is going on, Murayama, Caddis? The two women in front of the mob looked at his classmate with an air of annoyance, making Issei feel a little intimidated. These two perverted assholes were peeking in our locker room. Both women declared with great fury in their words. Issei looked at his friends with a blank eye before looking at the angry mob again. Okay, I understand. But I don't think that's the way to settle such a superficial conflict. Superficial, all the women shouted with great anger. At this, Issei felt that he was greatly diminished in front of the enraged women. Me and Murayama already know that you are friends with the pervert duo, are you also like them? Caddis asked with great indignation at her words. Issei again waved his hands in defense. No. I'm just saying that it's a bad idea to resort to violence for once they've spied on them. Obviously, I don't agree with them, and it seems right to me that if they are caught spying once more they can punish them without problem. Issei made the point of him with a big nervous smile on his face. All the women looked at each other for a few seconds, then nodded. Okay. But if we find them spying on us again, we'll kill them. Murayama would declare with great hatred in her words. This made Issei and her friend sweat nervously. Finally, the group of women dispersed and Issei's best friends went to thank him for his help. I knew we could count on your support. Motohama said as he placed a hand on her friend's shoulder. You're amazing, Issei. Mitsuda exclaimed very seriously as he placed a hand on Issei's remaining shoulder. Well, they wanted to use me as a human shield, said Issei with a small twitch in his eyebrow. Mitsuda would give Issei a slight push, making him look somewhat confused by his action. Let's just say it was our little payback for you joining a club full of beauties without letting us know. Mitsuda defended himself with a faint pained expression. Same here. That was very wrong of you. Motohama commented as he adjusted his glasses with a very serious look on his face. Oh, speaking of which, I have to go now. I have some chores to do at the club. See you later. Issei would say while he ran off to the occult club. Motohama shook her head disapprovingly. Anyway, I wouldn't join a beauty club if I had to be at your feet with so many odd jobs. At what point would I get to see the breasts? Mitsuda nodded vigorously, indicating that he agreed with his friend. Line jump. Issei entered the occult club only to see that Akeno and Rias were playing a game of chess. The chestnut-haired man introduced himself quickly, being answered by the two women. Rias got up from his seat and handed a pamphlet to Issei. "Only one?" the boy asked, a bit curious. "Akeno, Kiba and Kaneko have already taken care of everyone else. This was the only one left. I hope that with your previous experience you can complete this task successfully." Issei just nodded with a smile and grabbed the pamphlet gladly. "See you in a bit, President Akeno." Issei gave them a thumbs up, causing both women to smile their typical smiles at him. When he finally left, Rias sat back down and studied his next move. "Do you think he will be able to complete it?" Akeno asked with a calm smile. "I don't know. I hope he does, because at the moment he's not contributing much. It's amazing to think that Haidu is the Securite and he's so weak. Rias made a move that would kill the queen with a pawn. Even so, he has incredible potential. We are talking about the Securite, after all." Rias clarified with a pleased smile at having such a potentially strong minion. Akeno could only say "Ara Ara" from her when she saw in surprise how Rias had killed her queen. Blind jump. This is the place. Issei wondered as she looked between the house and the pamphlet. Issei got off the bike and knocked on the door. He stood there for several seconds without receiving an answer, so he knocked on the door harder, causing it to open a little. "It's open." Issei wondered, quite confused, before taking off his shoes and going into the house. "Hello?" Issei went a little into the house and closed the door while he looked at different places, everything being a bit dark. "I'm not a thief, the door was open, so yuck." Issei held his nose in great disgust. Where the fuck is that smell coming from? He thought the brown head with great disgust as he advanced into the living room. Poof. Issei looked down a bit confused when he felt that he had stepped on something wet. He quickly regretted it and his face began to turn purple while he covered his mouth in shock. What the hell? This is blood and in liters. He thought in alarm as he looked at the entire floor covered in blood. Oh. Issei was quickly alarmed by the scream and ran at full speed in his direction. He finally walked through a door and saw a familiar person covering his mouth in shock at what he was seeing. "Asia?" he wondered with great surprise. "Why are you yelling, you idiot brat? Don't you realize that this jerk asked for the help of a demon?" Issei could see how a man appeared from the shadows and menacingly approached Asia. But killing him is not the solution. Asia screamed in great terror as she looked at the mutilated body of the man. The guy grabbed Asia's neck and pushed her hard against a wall, doing a bit of damage to her in the process. "I don't give a shit what you say. I'm the great Fried Selzen and you'll have to respect my methods. Or better yet, I'll make sure it sticks right on your body, you nun-fucking bitch." After those last words, Fried looked at Asia in a completely lunatic way and ripped off a large part of her dress, making her blonde scream in fright. "Stop!" Issei yelled, appearing from the shadows, accompanied by anger. Fried gave Issei a psycho look, then let go of Asia and get a little closer. Oh. Look what we have here, a fucking demon. Do not hurt him." Asia yelled, clinging tightly to Fried. The white-haired man looked at her with hatred and gave her a strong elbow in the stomach that sent her to the ground. "Do not say stupid things." Issei gritted his teeth at the sight and would activate his boosted gear. The green sphere began to blink for seconds while the word boost. Fried looked at Issei somewhat confused, then returned to his psycho smile at the same time that he materialized a sword, along with a gun. "If you want to fight, I'll be happy to give it to you, you fucking demon," Fried exclaimed, bowing slightly. "Boost. Partner." Issei clenched his fist tightly as he watched Fried very seriously. "I know Drake. I can't get past 12 booster, I'm screwed." Issei would think, thanking his partner for his concern. Bragg smiled internally. "You'll still be fine with 12 mags. If he's solo, it'll be an easy win." Issei just smiled, causing Fried to look at him with some intrigue while he still held his psycho smile. "Are you smiling because you're going to die? Let me exorcise you so you won't have the shame of being a filthy demon any longer." Fried lunged at Issei, but the brown-haired man easily dodged it, making the white-haired man slightly surprised. Fried again tried to give him another thrust. Seeing that the movement was much faster, Issei blocked the cut with his gauntlet to then hit him hard in the stomach with his other hand that sent him flying and crashing into a closet, breaking it on the spot. Fried got up quickly while wiping a small trickle of blood that came out of his mouth. My. The skinny fucking demon is stronger than he looks." Fried widened his eyes mischievously and pointed his gun at Issei. Then. Fried's pistol would fire a white shot, making Issei a bit surprised, but he still managed to block it with his gauntlet without much difficulty. Issei was surprised when he lowered his gauntlet and Fried had his sword inches from his neck. The protagonist moved his head just in time and the sword grazed his neck. Issei's eyes widened at the opportunity and he wasted no time, kneeing Fried hard that nearly made him vomit blood, then punching him right on the cheek and pulling out his pistol with the other. Finally, he gave him a hard kick to the face that sent him crashing into the wall, rendering him half-conscious. "Alright," Issei thought with a defiant smile while he tightly clenched his gauntlet. "Good job, partner. For your first one-on-one battle, it's been pretty good. Before he could answer Drake, Issei quickly turned defensively after hearing someone. "Haidu, is everything under control?" Kiba asked with a smile as he was followed by Kaneko. The little girl looked at the sight devastated with a totally stoic expression. "Great, more fucking demons." Freed grumbled under his breath while he tried to get up in vain since he fell to the ground again while his face was quite bloody. "I can't believe that idiot left me like that with only 4 hits." The madman thought with great disgust. His disgusted face would change into a psycho smile as the sky was dyed with a purple aura. "Apparently, my friends have arrived, the fallen angels." He yelled in a chanting tone only to cough up blood at the end. He looked at Asia with great contempt. "None, what the fuck are you waiting for? Come here and heal me now. I want to make sure I tear even one fucking demon apart." Asia would quickly listen to him and come over to heal him. The blonde looked at Issei with a sad smile. "Thank you for worrying, Issei. But you don't need to help me anymore. My suffering will end tonight and I will serve God as I always wanted to." Asia began to heal Freed with a sacred gear that gave off a green color. Hiba and Kaneko focused on the blonde sacred gear and looked at each other. They were thinking the same thing, apparently. Hiba stepped forward and grabbed Issei's shoulder tightly. "I'm sorry, Haidu. But we have to go. I guess there will be a large number of fallen angels and there is no way we can defeat them without the president's help." "But Asia," Issei would say, clenching his fists tightly. Kaneko approached Issei and squeezed his waist tightly so that he couldn't move, causing the brown-haired man to be surprised. A Gremory family magic circle appeared at the feet of the 3 of them. "She can't come with us. She's only human." Kaneko commented with his typical emotionless expression, causing Issei to start struggling very hard to try to go with Asia. Kaneko's eyes widened slightly at him as he found himself using more force than he thought to stop Issei's advance. "Asia?" Asia gave him a smile as tears began to fall from her face. Issei could only helplessly extend his arm towards the blonde to see how he disappeared from the place with a red flash and returned to the occult club. Finally, the magic circle disappeared and Kaneko released it. Issei fell to his knees as he had a completely cold look on his face. Hiba and Kaneko looked at each other, worried about the stupidity that was going through Issei's mind right now. Issei remained on the floor with an overwhelming silence in the room. The only thing that could be heard was the bathtub being turned on, along with the voices of Akeno and Rias in the background. Just as the bathtub stopped being heard, Issei hit the floor hard and stood up, starting to walk towards the exit with shadowed eyes. Hiba took a step forward, worried about how his partner was doing. "Haidu, it's not good what you think. The president will punish you if you try to go there." Issei stopped in his tracks before closing the door to give Kiba a sidelong glance. Even Kaneko was surprised to see the hideous expression that Issei gave off. "I'm fed up. If I don't help her, who else will? I'd rather die with a clear conscience than continue living knowing that I abandoned a friend." Issei slowly closed the door, making Kiba and Kaneko look at each other seriously. "Hey guys, did something happen to make you here at this hour?" Rias asked, coming out of the bathroom with only a towel, just like Akeno. "President, it's Haidu. He plans to save that nun he came across a week ago. Apparently, he's not willing to listen to us." At Kiba's seriousness and words, Rias and Akeno frowned in great disagreement. Finally, Rias would give a smile. "In that case, I'll have to give him a good lesson so he understands not to meddle in matters that don't concern him." Kiba and Kaneko looked at each other seriously, then nodded. The nun had a very rare sacred gear. She could heal superficial wounds and medium damage at a good speed. Kaneko declared with an unusually serious expression. Rias looked at her somewhat surprised by the information. "She's a nun, so you could reincarnate her as a devil and that way you'd get a powerful bishop along with a very rare sacred gear. You'll just have to wait for the right moment," Kiba explained with a smile. Rias looked at Kiba as he crossed his arms with a pleased smile on his face. "Apparently, it didn't take her long to choose, did it, President?" Akeno asked with a slightly weird laugh at the end. End of chapter. I suppose that with the slightly changed personality of certain characters, plus the changes that I have been announcing so far, the vast majority will have realized what Issei can expect in the future. If it bothers you that I missed both times that Issei participated in the wandering demon hunt, then I'm so sorry. In any case, it would not have been very different from the original story and for that very reason I only mentioned it. But the next chapter 1 will finish the introductory arc and most likely the first waifu will have a small appearance at the end of the chapter. I suppose some of you already have a little idea of who will be the first to reveal himself. By the way, don't forget the number 25. It seems like a simple filler that I add in between, but it will have relevance not just once, but throughout the entire story. Returning to the main point. On this occasion I think I have been able to correct what I was wrong before. I also exchanged the bold letters that indicated time jumps for line breaks. If the latter pleases everyone more than the option presented in the last 2 chapters, then I'll leave it. Don't forget to comment on any bugs you see. I also accept suggestions. Thanks so much for reading. Thanks for watching. This video. Part 1 is now over. If you like this video, please subscribe and like this video. I hope I see you in the next video.